This is the July 12th, 2012 meeting of the Jefferson City Planning and Zoning Commission. My name is Ralph Robinette. I am the chairman of the commission and will run the meeting. At this time, we will introduce our councilmen, commissioners, and staff. We will start with you, Councilman.
Rick Mahalovich, Liaison, Council.
Mike Lester.
Jack Deacon.
Bob George.
Dave Nunn.
Ian Strotman.
Chris Jordan.
Dale Vaughn.
Dean Dutoy.
Bunny Tricky Cotton.
Shane Wade.
Eric Barron.
Janice McMillan.
The City Code authorizes 9 regular members and 3 alternates. Alternates are designated to vote upon the absence or disqualification of a regular member. A quorum of 5 members or alternates is necessary to conduct business. I hereby declare that a quorum is present. We have 1 regular member absent. He said he will be here. The voting members tonight are Jack Deacon, Dean DeToy, Bob George, Chris Jordan, Michael Lester, Dave Nunn, Chris Yarnell, Del Vaughn. Bunny Dale, Chris says he will be here, so you will not get to vote if he shows up. If he doesn't show up, you will get to vote. This time I'm going to call for the cases. If someone is here to represent those cases, just indicate that you are present. Case number P12008, 2715 Portobello Place Drive rezoning. Case P12009, 1400 block of Creek Trail Drive rezoning. Case P12010, 1400 block of Creek Trail Drive, preliminary and final subdivision plat of Tribeca Village subdivision. Okay. Everyone here is to be represented then. I do not have any request at this time for any continuance. Staff report.
The format of the hearing. I'd like to briefly describe the procedures of the Planning Commission. The proceedings of the meeting are being recorded, so I ask that when you speak, please step to the microphone and give your name and address for the record. After a brief introduction by city staff, the applicant and applicant's consultants and advisors will explain the project, and the opening presentation by the applicant shall be limited to 10 minutes. The applicant shall be given 3 additional minutes for closing testimony if so requested. We will then ask to hear from supporters of the request, and we will then ask to hear from any opponents of the request, and we will then ask to hear from anyone else who wishes to speak on the request. And the testimony from supporters, opponents, or other interested parties shall be limited to 3 minutes each, and rebuttal testimony shall be limited to 5 minutes unless permission is granted by the Commission for additional time. And city staff will then describe the proposal and make their recommendations on the request. In order to reduce the time necessary to hear an application, reference to printed material, including the staff reports, applicable findings, ordinances, and/or statutes, shall not be read into the record unless directed by the Commission. And the staff reports and recommendations, if any, on the matter before the Commission shall be presented to the Commission before the Commission acts on the matter. And the Commission will close testimony from the floor prior to motion or discussion on the case. And the Commission will then discuss the proposal and publicly make its determination with reasons. And the form of the motion shall be positive. That is, the motion shall be made to accept the request as presented or with modifications, stipulations, or conditions, and a final vote would then be taken. Ayes in favor, nays opposed. And the chairman shall announce the results of the vote, specifying the number of votes cast in favor and the number of votes cast against. And the following documents are entered as exhibits for all items under consideration at this meeting. In the City Code of the City of Jefferson as amended, the Comprehensive Plan and Land Use Map, copies of applications under consideration, a list of property owners to whom notices were sent, the affidavit of publication of the public notice in the newspaper, copies of drawings, plans, and/or renderings under consideration, letters or memoranda from staff, staff reports, minutes of proceedings, letters, photos, memoranda, or other materials submitted by the public or the applicant, and the rules of procedure for the Jefferson City, Missouri Planning and Zoning Commission. These items are public record and are available for inspection in the Department of Planning and Protective Services or through the Office of the City Clerk. And please be advised that any items presented to the Planning Commission this evening become the property of the Commission. This includes any photographs, drawings, renderings, petitions, and letters.
Thank you. We have no request to change the agenda as we have it tentatively printed here, so the chair at this time would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. You also have before you or in your packet the June 14th, 2012 minutes, if you would like just a few moments to look at those to see if there's any changes or revisions you'd like to make to those or to approve those.
I make a motion to approve the minutes as submitted.
I second. And we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes as submitted. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, nay. You have approved the minutes. Bunny, because Chris has not shown up, you'll be able to vote then on this first case. Okay, we have not received any communication. Case P12008, staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have three separate cases on the agenda tonight, and they were all submitted by essentially by the same developer, and they're all dealing with the same area. In fact, some of them are dealing with the same property, and I wanted to go through all of the individual requests right up front so that everyone understands what is being requested, and then deal with each of the individual cases one by one. First, I wanted to orient you to the location of all of the requests tonight. Up on the screen is a excerpt map of the city. Toward the top of the screen, you'll see West Edgewood Drive. Toward the left-hand side of the screen, you'll see Highway 179. And right in the middle of the screen is Creek Trail Drive. The property that we're discussing tonight is located at the end of Creek Trail Drive. Literally, if you drive Creek Trail Drive until it dead ends, just a couple hundred feet past the intersection of Portobello Place Drive, which is not labeled on this map, you'll see that's the property. Now, there's two separate pieces of property, and you'll see each of them highlighted here. One of them is a single lot, and the other one is a very large tract of ground. And on this next screen, I have a blow-up of that specific area with each of the two different properties. Now, the requests for the first property, I'll call it, the individual lot, is a simple rezoning. It's a request to rezone the property from a commercial office to a multifamily residential designation, along with the necessary comprehensive plan amendment that would support that zoning for just one lot. And the purpose there is to construct a multi-unit residential building similar to the other ones that are already within that subdivision. The second piece of property, as you'll see, is 16 3/4 acres, and there's essentially three different things that are being requested on this property. One is a rezoning, one is a preliminary plat for the property, and then the third is a final plat for a portion of the property, the first phase of their development. And let me touch on each of those individually. First, the property has two different zoning designations on it. About half of the property is zoned C1, general or neighborhood commercial, and then the other half is zoned RA1, which is a multifamily residential designation. And there's a little bit of history to that. The property was originally zoned RA1 and was rezoned to C1 in 2008 by a former property owner as it was a speculative rezoning. But the current property owners are wishing to rezone some of that property back to a multifamily residential category and then pursue a multifamily residential development on the property. Let me touch on that a little bit more. Up on the screen I have borders of each of the different requests for four different items. The first is, again, for the individual lot located on the corner of Creek Trail Drive and Portobello Place that they're requesting to rezone from commercial office to RA1, a multifamily residential. The second is a request to rezone a portion of their larger piece of property from commercial to, again, multifamily residential. They did not want to rezone the entire commercials part of their property under the belief that they may still intend a commercial development for the remainder of the property in the future. They're not real sure. But this commercial zoning would support their current plan, the first phase of their development. The third request is for the entirety of the large piece of property and is a preliminary plat that shows the layout, the lot layout for the entire property. And then the final item is just for the first phase of their development that they intend to pursue immediately, which is a multifamily residential development consisting of 5 lots, the first section of their subdivision. As you'll see, this last item is really probably is the most important. It's the subdivision of the property that allows them to pursue their development plan. In order to do that, they need the zoning to be unified, and so that's why the zoning is such a small area when compared to their the rezoning is such a small area when compared to the entirety of the property. Does anyone have any questions on those to begin with? Is there any confusion in that regard?
Anyone have any questions of staff at this time?
Eric, I've got a quick question. You said the tract or the lot on the corner of Portobello and Creek Trail, I think you mentioned that we rezoned that from RA to CO at some time in the past, correct?
Yes, that's correct. The zoning history, which I touched on a little bit within the different staff reports, the previous owners applied, and they did this all at one time. They applied to rezone 2 lots there on the corner of Creek Trail and Portobello Place. One of them is they're requesting to rezone tonight. The other one is right across the road from multifamily to commercial office. At the same time, they were also the owners of the large tract of land. They applied to rezone essentially half of that property to commercial, and their plan was, or their hope was that an extension of Creek Trail Drive through the property would allow for some commercial development in that area. It did not materialize.
I guess what I was kind of getting at, and I didn't look at it, I should have before tonight's meeting, is did the current applicant get the other corner lot when they purchased this?
No.
They did not. Okay.
No.
I just thought if they did, it'd make our zoning line kind of smooth through there instead of having that one office. But
Yes.
obviously they don't own it, so they can't do it.
And the ownership actually of this lot is currently Mid-America Bank, and but it is under contract to be purchased. So. Okay. To that effect, the first case P12008, the address is 2715 Portobello Place Drive. Again, it's a request to rezone that individual lot from commercial office to RA1, which is a high-density residential, multifamily residential zoning category, and a comprehensive plan amendment to show the property as high-density residential on the development plan map of the comprehensive plan that would support their requested rezoning, and that is a map of the property. Beyond that, I don't have a whole lot to say about it. Their purpose is to construct a multi-unit residential building on that lot.
Any other questions of staff at this time? Commissioner Chris Yarnell came in. He is now present, so Bunny, you will go back to an alternate status. Okay, first case, P12008, 2715 Portobello Place Drive rezoning from CO to RA1. Who is here to present that case?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Paul Sampson. I'm with Central Missouri Professional Services, 2500 East McCarty Street. First of all, I'd like to thank Eric for the very in-depth prelude to this discussion. I think he hit on the majority of the issues regarding the 4 cases, or the 3 cases that we're looking at tonight. As Eric said, right now the 2 lots that are currently zoned CO on either side of Portobello Place are owned by Mid-America Bank. Tribeca Investments currently has a contract for the for the lot that we are asking for the rezoning for, and the reason for asking for the rezoning for the single lot is because that is under contract to Tribeca, and their intent is to start a residential building on that lot right away. That way they can get going on the development, and then as they move into the next piece of it, that'll get us into the other rezoning cases and the subdivision plat. That really is the gist of the first case. I'll answer any questions if anybody has any.
Anyone have any questions, Paul? Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here to testify in favor of this case? Is there anyone here to testify in opposition to this case? Seeing none, we will close the public testimony. Staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There are 2 separate items here, a comprehensive plan amendment and a rezoning request. In regards to the comprehensive plan amendment, the property is located on a street with certainly a multifamily residential character to it. The change in the comprehensive plan to redesignate it as high-density residential would seem appropriate, and would support the requested rezoning. The staff recommends approval of the request in 2 separate motions as shown on the staff report.
Thank you. Do we have an engineering report? Any questions of staff? We want to do this in 2 motions. Any discussion by the commissioners? The chair would entertain at this time the 2 separate motions to approve this case. Who wants to try that?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the request to amend the development plan map of the comprehensive plan in order to show the property as high-density residential.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion on that motion. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries 9-0. You want to try the second motion, Dean?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the request to rezone the property in question from CO to RA1.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries 9-0. Case P12009, 1400 block of Creek Trail Drive rezoning from C1 to RA1 and comprehensive plan amendment. Who is here to present that?
If I could,
Okay.
just to touch on this a little bit more. This property is, again, this highlighted portion. Now I'm gonna skip ahead several slides to show you the plat and show everyone here in attendance the actual plat and how this particular zoning lies on the property. This is their intended development plan for the entirety of the property. Again, they would only be final platting a small portion of the property for the first phase of their development. And I'm going to lean on the visual that was presented to you by Central Missouri Professional Services. It's a little bit easier to distinguish the different items here, but the blue hatch marked area is that portion of their final plat, and this is their final plat that is being proposed to be rezoned from commercial to multifamily residential. And again, this is to unify the zoning of the first phase of their development as multifamily residential, so that they can get started on that first phase of their development. The staff report again shows a little bit of the history. It tells a little bit of the history and when it was rezoned. Again, they're not proposing to rezone the entire C1 zoned portion of their property for the simple fact that they would like to reserve the possibility of doing a commercial development along a future extension of Creek Trail Drive if their hopes for a multifamily residential development don't materialize. I'd be happy to answer any initial questions. Otherwise, I'd turn it over to the developer's representative.
Any questions, staff? Seeing none, who is here to represent the city?
I'm Paul Sampson, Central Missouri Professional Services, 2500 East McCarty Street. Like Eric said, yes. Is that better? Okay, like I was saying, in Eric's presentation, the area that is going to, or that we're asking to be rezoned is going to be part of the first phase of the development, intended to create a contiguous residential zoning designation, which will allow the developer to get started on the residential portion of it. The remainder of the existing C1 zone property is not being asked to be rezoned at this time to reserve the possibility of commercial uses in the future if there's need for that. I'll answer any questions.
Any questions of Paul? Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else here that would like to speak in favor of this proposal? Anyone here that would like to speak in opposition to this proposal? Seeing none, we will close the public testimony. Staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, there are two separate items to this request. A comprehensive plan amendment to show the property as high-density residential on the development plan map of the comprehensive plan, and then also the request to rezone the property from C1 to RA1. Regarding the comprehensive plan amendment, an extension of the commercial development pattern along Creek Trail Drive does have some potential. However, this property was originally intended as a multifamily residential development and is adjacent to lots that are currently zoned multifamily residential and should be developing in a multifamily residential manner. So certainly the comprehensive plan amendment request would seem logical in this case. The rezoning request would then be supported by that comprehensive plan amendment. Staff recommends approval of both requests in two separate motions as shown on the staff report.
Any questions of staff? Discussion by commissioners. Chair would entertain someone to put a motion on the floor to approve this project.
I would move that we approve the request to amend the comprehensive plan development map in order to show the property as high-density residential.
We have a motion and a second Discussion of this motion? All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries 9-0. Dave, you want to try the second motion?
Based on the staff analysis contained in the notes that we've been provided, I would move that we approve the request to rezone the property from C1 to RA1.
Second. Have a motion and a second. Discussion on that motion? All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries 9-0. Case P12010, 1400 block of Creek Trail Drive preliminary and final subdivision plat of Tribeca Village subdivision. Staff report.
And thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to divide this one into two separate pieces. The first being the preliminary subdivision plat, and the second being the final subdivision plat of their first phase of development. First, the preliminary plat is for the entirety of the property. Preliminary plat's purpose is to show the intended development layout for the entire property, including any streets, utilities, and other pertinent items that need to be addressed at the very beginning of a development of a piece of property. It is then typical to divide the property up into multiple sections or phases that are completed one at a time until the entire property is developed. The preliminary plat, which is shown up on the screen, consists of a total of 16.75 acres. There's a total of 29 lots on the shown on the plat and 2 reserve tracts. The plat is very similar to a plat that was presented to the Cole County Planning Commission prior to annexation of this property into the city limits of Jefferson City. To backtrack here just a moment, the history of the property was annexed into Jefferson City in 2006 as part of a voter-approved annexation. In 2008 was when the commercial rezonings that I referenced earlier took place. But prior to the annexation, in 2003, a development plan for the property was submitted to the Cole County Planning Commission. However, now that the property's been incorporated into Jefferson City, they're subject to our platting requirements, and this plat would meet those requirements. The 29 lots are numbered, and then 2 reserve tracts that I'd like to point out. First, to orient you a little bit to the how this plat lies. North is actually to the left of the screen, so it's not north is not up on this. North is to the left, and you'll see Creek Trail Drive. Again, if you were to drive Creek Trail Drive to the dead end, right now you would be sitting about there where my mouse pointer is located, and that's where the Creek Trail Drive dead ends. The plat shows an extension of Creek Trail Drive to the southern boundary of the property, and then a separate street named Tribeca Circle off of Creek Trail Drive that would end in a cul-de-sac within the property. The 2 reserve tracts, one reserve tract is located right here, if you look at the mouse pointer. And it is located on property that is mostly encumbered by utility easements and floodplain. And then the second reserve tract is located right there and is basically a sliver of property, and the developer intends to actually transfer that property, connect it to Lot 30, which was the subject of the first case this evening. So they would actually take a portion of the property within the subdivision and connect it to that because it's so small it can't be used in any other manner. the various utility items that are shown on the plat. There are sidewalks shown on both sides of the extension of Creek Trail Drive, 5-foot wide sidewalks as required by the code, and then a sidewalk on one side of Tribeca Circle, 4-foot wide, again as required by the sidewalk requirement within the city code. All of the lots are shown with access to water lines, sanitary sewer lines, underground electric and telephone, and also there are fire hydrants located within the development at appropriate intervals. Street lights are missing, and that is one item that's noted that still yet needs to be incorporated onto the plat. And I think that's all I have for now. I'd be happy to answer any initial questions.
Any questions of staff? Thank you. Who is here to present this case? Paul?
Paul Sampson, Central Missouri Professional Services, 2500 East McCarty Street. Again, as Eric said, the preliminary subdivision plat consists of 29 lots and 2 reserved tracts. The plat anticipates the extension of Creek Trail Drive to the south from its current dead end, and then a new street, Tribeca Circle, will be constructed to the east of that. The lots are all set up meeting the RA1 zoning designation. Again, it's anticipated that the majority of the development will be in a multi-unit residential fashion. The first phase of the development, if you will look at the colored visual that I handed out prior to the meeting, will consist of the first five lots on Tribeca Circle. Again, those are all set up for multi-unit residential development. Eric noted the street lights that are missing on the preliminary plat. We will take care of adding those. We have reviewed the city staff's comments on their staff reports, and we do not have any issues with any of their recommendations. And I'll answer any questions.
Any questions of Paul?
Thank you.
Anyone else here that would like to testify in favor of this proposal? Anyone here that would like to speak in opposition to this proposal? Seeing none, we'll close the public testimony on this case. Staff report.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to, there's one item that I failed to mention. There's actually, the city has a greenway plan that would touch the property in terms of there's a planned greenway route that would essentially go down the creek, and in fact, if you hold on a moment, up on the screen is essentially the plan as it stands today to reroute a portion of the city greenway from, or I say reroute, to construct a portion of greenway from West Edgewood Drive along the creek under Highway 179, and then reconnect to Edgewood Drive. For those of you that travel on the greenway very often, you'll know that this is a very steep hill along the greenway. It can be a struggle to go up on a bicycle, and then also at the top of the hill, you then have to cross a multi-lane highway that's often very busy with traffic. In order to get around that and provide for a more scenic greenway route, the Parks Department has prepared this plan, which follows along with the city's greenway master plan to construct a greenway through this area. I really can't speak to the timeline, but if there are questions in that regard, we do have a representative from the Parks Department here. But with regard to this development, up on the screen, the property we're discussing tonight is actually located right here. and you'll see that the orange greenway line does go through the development, and the developer does recognize that the greenway, is intended to travel through the property, and a note has been added to the preliminary plat that when the time comes that they will work with the city in terms of establishing that greenway route through the property. That's just something I wanted to touch on, that it is something that was an item of discussion between staff and the developer, and the note that's been added to the preliminary plat should protect the greenway route in terms of being able to make that link. Other items on the preliminary subdivision plat, and most of these items are listed on the second page of the staff report, the planning staff report. The first item is accommodation of the greenway route through Reserve Track B, and as it's noted there, a note has been added to the preliminary plat that indicates the developer will work with the city to provide that route. The second item, identification of streetlight, fire hydrant, and sidewalk locations. They have indicated all of those except for the street lights, which they've indicated that they will do. The third item, the purpose of Reserve Tract A, when the plat first came in, they hadn't indicated what was to be done with it. Again, they have indicated it will be connected to the neighboring lot in order to ensure that that it provides some use in the future and is maintained. The fourth item in the staff report, there are a number of comments and corrections to the plat that remain, of minor corrections that have been identified by the engineering division. And then the fifth item in the staff report is in regards to on-street parking. Is typical for city staff to at the same time that a plat is going to the city council to include a bill that would limit parking on one side of the street if the street is not wide enough to accommodate that. And they have the developers indicated that parking would be allowed on the north side of Tribeca Circle, north being to the left, so on this side of Tribeca Circle. And we would therefore be putting together a council bill to prohibit parking on the other side, and then also prohibit parking in the vicinity of the intersection, so that future intersection modifications could be made if traffic volumes ever warranted on Creek Trail Drive. And I think that Shane might be able to go into more detail on that if necessary. Planning division staff does recommend approval of the preliminary plat. I think it'd probably be easier to with your approval, of course, to decide on the preliminary plat before moving forward to the final plat. And I believe that Shane has a staff report as well.
I'll briefly go over additional comments as far as infrastructure goes. I think Paul and Eric have covered quite a bit of it, but in regard to planned improvements, stormwater, this is the last section of Creekside Park subdivision, so initially stormwater detention was not planned with that. The consultant has taken a look at the existing system that's been put in down by Creek Trail Drive and Portobello Place, and is not exceeding the capacity of that system. So at this point, we're agreeing that the detention is not required for this last section of the former Creekside Park subdivision. Tribeca Circle is planned as a 28-foot roadway. Creek Trail is planned as a 38 feet wide roadway. Sanitary sewer is existing through the subdivision to serve another portion of Creekside Park up above. There would be some adjustments to the existing sanitary sewer as far as manhole elevations to accommodate the construction of the street, Tribeca Circle. As Eric had indicated, sidewalk is shown in accordance with city standards on both Tribeca Circle and Creekside Park. Access to the development will be from Creek Trail Drive, and then also provide access to the future the undeveloped property to the south, the Heinrichs Farm property. City staff has sent a letter to the neighboring property to see if a turnaround easement would be granted at the end of Creek Trail Drive. We're awaiting an acknowledgement whether or not they would be interested in that. That would help out in regard to the development of the last portion of the lots on the end of Creek Trail Drive, so that the turnaround wouldn't be on the frontage of those. So that could possibly be added in the future if they're agreeable to that. Parking, as Eric had indicated, has been shown along Tribeca Circle on the north side, and then had indicated that we'd like to restrict parking in the vicinity of the intersection with Creek Trail Drive there to allow for a possible future turn lane pocket. Facilities as far as utilities, fire hydrants, and street lights have all been proposed in accordance with city standards, other than we need to have the street lights shown on the preliminary plat. And we're in agreement as far as an approval, subject to as far as the preliminary plat, actually, just some minor technical issues. The remainder of these comments that I have are more pertain to the improvement plans and to the final plat.
And the recommended form of motion is the first one, number 1, listed on the Planning Division staff report. Approval of the preliminary subdivision plat of Tribeca Village subdivision with the following conditions. Show street lights on the preliminary plat at the required intervals, and compliance with the recommendations and technical corrections of the engineering division. And Mr. Chairman, we could go into the final plat and you could discuss them both at the same time, or we could wait, whatever your desire is.
Just go ahead and just discuss them both at the same time, then we can vote on them individually.
Okay. The next one is for the section 1 of Tribeca Village subdivision. The area is shown up on the screen, so you can get an idea on what portion of the property is intended to be developed in section 1. This is the final subdivision plat of section 1. It contains 5 lots and 1 reserve tract. The reserve tract is the one that would be transferred to the neighboring lot, as discussed. The portion of the street goes roughly halfway up Tribeca Circle, but only a small portion of Creek Trail Drive up to the furthest boundary of Lot 5 is shown on the plat. So they would be responsible for constructing an extension of Creek Trail Drive just a couple hundred feet to that boundary, and then approximately half of Tribeca Circle up to this boundary for the first phase of their development. And then for future phases, they would come back to this body with a new final plat for any additional sections. The purpose of the final plat is essentially to show the property lines, boundaries, right-of-way, utility easements, and any other pertinent information on the plat. There is a floodplain touching the property ever so slightly, as you'll see right down in this area. Is basically touching the right-of-way. Okay. What are the widths of those? 25 and 60. Okay. One item within the subdivision code is stream setbacks. Anytime a subdivision's being platted close to a creek that drains more than 50 acres, and certainly this one does, there is essentially a buffer that's established on the side of that creek 25 feet wide buffer area, and then an additional 35-foot wide setback area for a total of 60 feet. That is shown on the plat. Other than that, I think that's all I have. And Shane, do you have anything else to add to that?
I would just add that we've reviewed the plans as far as the improvements, street, storm, and sanitary, and that we've and given those back to the consultant, and we're awaiting the revisions of those technical, of the technical review, and that the items that I've listed pertain to the major items there, and they've indicated that there should be no issue with those issues. So.
Other than that, I don't have anything else to add, unless maybe the consultant has anything to add.
Any questions of staff? Dale?
Because it's own subdivision, what kind of restrictions do they have to go by as far as building restrictions? Like on Portobello and Notting Hill, they're going to have restricted building sizes and things like that, right?
They are free to establish
Their own.
any private subdivision covenants that they wish. They're not subject to any of the others because they had never been platted. So they can, they're not subject to the requirements of the previous Creekside Park subdivisions.
Even with the Creek Trail extension, the way that it is as far as the commercial lots go?
Yeah, no, they're not subject to any of that. They're at this point, they're only subject to zoning requirements, building code requirements, etc. But they certainly can establish their own private subdivision covenants if they wish.
I have a question about the, I have the name of it, the Circle Drive, there's going to be a sidewalk only on the south side of the street and parking only on the north side of the street where there's no sidewalk. In trying to imagine that, where I would want to live in here with it just seems like that's not a very good plan. I presume it's consistent with both individually are consistent with city code, or for lack of a better word, but it seems like it's not a very good way to use that street. Is there anything that could be done to help this?
I think if I can add, the designation of the parking has been proposed by the developer. The city doesn't have to accept that. We can designate the parking on wherever is appropriate.
Isn't that something that we would be approving here as part of the plat, as to which side the parking would be on?
Is it indicated on the plat?
It's too small for me to read. It's such a small.
The way I understood it, the parking was to be allowed on the north or the easterly side and removed on the southerly or the westerly side. And then the sidewalk was to be proposed on the northerly side of the road.
So that parking and the sidewalk is together? Okay, I misunderstood. I thought that the sidewalk was on the south side.
On Creek Trail, it's on both sides. But the way that at least in my review of it, the proposal was that the sidewalk be on the north side.
Okay, so the people on the south side get no street parking and no sidewalk is what it boils down to. And, and if you look up at Notting Hill there, they have a sidewalk on both sides of the street. as far as it went. Looks like a much better plan to me. If it were up to me, I would impose that they have a sidewalk on both sides of the street, but if I understand correctly, that's not something we can impose.
The only thing I can say is that I know that there was a lot of discussion about utilities and stormwater and sanitary sewer. The sanitary sewer actually runs on the south side. The stormwater, the system is proposed on the south side. It runs pretty well the entire length. And initially, I think the utilities, some were proposed on that south side too, but in order to get everything to kind of fit, they chose to go ahead and move that over onto the north side of the roadway. I know typically the utilities and conflicts with the stormwater boxes and things, just in terms of function, in that regard, I'd say that the north side might be a better fit for the sidewalk on the north. Paul may have a few more comments in that regard, but they're just trying to get everything on one side of the street sometimes is pretty difficult. So, but I can.
Well, a sidewalk normally doesn't interfere with any of those things.
No, other than if they have to dig them up, they generally try not to, if they can avoid trying to have to dig it up underneath the sidewalk, then that's in a lot of cases still. We have some additional easement on either side behind the sidewalk for utilities, but anyway, that's all I can.
I guess my question boils down to what we're allowed to do and what we're not allowed to do. Could we, at this body, impose that and have the sidewalk on both sides of the street? Or is that beyond our purview?
No, the sidewalk, as it's shown on the plat, meets the requirement of the city code.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
Do you have a question, Michael? Okay. Any other questions of staff?
yes. The side of the road that the sidewalk is on could be imposed by this body, yes. And
Okay. Thank you. That's not my concern.
Discussion by the commissioners. We want to do this in two motions again. Who would like to undertake to do that?
I'll do that, Mr. Chairman, if you'd like. I think on staff's recommendation, we'll start with the preliminary plat. I make a motion to approve the preliminary subdivision plat of Tribeca Village subdivision with the following conditions: that the show the street lights on the preliminary plat as required, and compliance with any recommendations and technical corrections of the engineering division or any other city staff.
Have a motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion is approved 9-0. Want to try the second motion, Chris?
Yes, sir. I make a motion to approve the final subdivision plat of Tribeca Village subdivision, Section 1, with the following condition: finalization of the infrastructure improvement plans prior to introduction of the final plat to City Council, and any other compliance and or recommendations and technical corrections of the engineering division or other city staff.
Motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries 9-0. Our recommendations will be forwarded to the city council for their action. Eric, do you have some tentative dates when this will come before the council, so these applicants might know that?
yes, I do. The date that it would be in front of the city council for the zoning matters for a public hearing is August 20th. That is also the date that, pending the necessary improvement plans are in order by the time the first meeting in August comes up. The final plat would also be before the council for approval. The preliminary plat, of course, does not go to the city council. It's an item that's only approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Thank you. Other business, scheduled reports, Environmental Quality Commission report.
Okay. Last month at the Environmental Quality Commission, the chairperson presented recycling update, including plans to produce a direct mailer to city residents about the city's recycling program with information on its benefits and what is allowed for recycling in containers and what's not allowed. There was a brainstorming session about strategies and content for a broad-based environmental outreach and education effort. And the commissioners and the city staff discussed the recently revised powers and duties of the commission and were presented the Livable Streets policy recently adopted by the city council. Among those revised duties will be that the commission will serve as the advisory board for monitoring and supporting the city's livable streets policy. And then Janice McMillan presented an update of the city's sidewalk plan, and the commissioners and staff discussed criteria for evaluating commitment of resources for new sidewalk construction or repair of sidewalk construction as part of the plan implementation, and a number of criteria were proposed for evaluating the merits of new sidewalk or repair of existing sidewalks, and those criteria proposed were the route being a major route to or proximity to a school, or a major route or proximity to a park or neighborhood playground, or a major route from a residential area to a shopping district, particularly one that had food stores. And that was pretty much what happened, I think.
Any questions of Michael? Thank you for your report. Thank you for representing us on that commission. Thank you. Discussion of possible zoning code amendments. I think this is a staff issue.
Okay. As we often do, come to this body with various zoning code amendments. We recently brought a whole stack of them to you, and those were approved by the city council. In order to keep things moving, we've always got ideas on ways that the zoning code can be tweaked in order to operate better. In the course of doing our day-to-day jobs, sometimes items that need to be changed in order to make them enforceable or make more sense. Sure.
Well, I'll talk to you about code enforcement activities. If we can get through the zoning first, then I'll talk to you about code enforcement. Okay.
Some of the items that I'll speak about. The first one, I call it alternative energy. Think solar panels and wind farms. If any of you have ever seen some of the smaller blades that could be set up even in a residential setting, someone can set up a small wind-propelled generator that can help to reduce their energy or provide some of the energy for their house. But there, of course, are also some negative effects to having such items. They're generally located on a tall tower. Sometimes they can make noise, and it's becoming more and more common that regulations regarding where those items can be located and in what manner are being incorporated into zoning codes for cities across the country. And we think it's probably time to look at that in terms of our zoning code. And also solar panels. Again, solar panels, they depending on what context they're located, can have effects as well, visual effects and otherwise. And again, a lot of zoning codes are incorporating where those items can be located on on houses and et cetera. There's various revisions to the home occupation section that, in the course of speaking to people on a day-to-day basis almost with regards to what types of businesses they can operate within their homes, it's probably about time that we take a look at the home occupation section and maybe make some changes, or at least discuss some potential changes to that section to firm up any types of standards for some of the home occupations that are allowed, possibly allowing a few more of them, and looking for any other problems that home occupations can cause, or maybe restrictions that aren't necessary within our zoning code. So probably be coming with you with several discussion items and some recommendations on the home occupation section within the zoning code. Home occupations are for when businesses are being run out of people's houses. They're not allowed to be very large, and essentially at this time are limited to home offices. So if someone's operating an office out of their home, be it a real estate office or the paperwork portion of their contracting business or something to that effect, there's certain allowances for that. But anything that involves customers coming to the house is generally not allowed. The next item I have is agricultural uses. Agriculture, has come up before this body in the past. Fences for one matter, but again, there's movements across the country for small-scale agricultural type uses in residential settings, and I think it's important to firm up our own zoning code in terms of what is allowed in a residential setting, or within the city limits on on properties that aren't necessarily as big as what one might consider a farm. And then also on my list here, I have an update to the subdivision code. And it might be kind of difficult to go into too much detail on that, but basically changing a little bit of the manner in which smaller subdivisions are approved and what's required in order to get them approved. But that's what I have on my list. I think Janice probably has more interesting things than me, though.
Well, one of the items that I've been looking for since we had the reorganization last August is our possible changes that would help in code enforcement activities. And so one of the changes that we'd like to make in our zoning code have to do with outdoor storage, and so we'll be making some recommendations on the code amendments regarding that. Also, Eric mentioned changes to the subdivision code, but before we get to making code changes too haphazardly, I suppose, one of the things that I'd like to do is make sure our comprehensive plan supports the kinds of code amendments or codes that we're proposing. And one of the things we've been working on for quite a while is the Central East Side Plan and adopting codes that would help put that into action. The Historic Preservation Commission has been working really very hard on the design standards for Capitol Avenue, and those are about ready to be publicized, and we'll have a neighborhood meeting. I'm not sure if it'll be August or September, but that will be coming up soon, and then those design standards will be coming to the Planning and Zoning Commission. Another thing that we're considering is working on a stormwater plan element as part of our comprehensive plan. Jefferson City is what's called a Phase 2 community, and so we have some significant requirements as far as stormwater management and water quality issues to manage. And so one of the things we want to do is make sure our plan supports a better water quality effort, and also enact some ordinances that go that direction too. And you heard tonight, and as part of the subdivision discussion, the setback from creeks and riparian corridors, and so that's kind of part of that response to the water quality regulations that the city is adopting. And also is on the planning side, Eric is finishing up the South Side redevelopment plan, and so that'll be coming back in the final form sometime, I hope, before the end of the year, so we can adopt that and then move ahead on the south side. So that's my short list. But as if I can go back to and address Mr. Deacon's comment on the code enforcement. The code enforcement officers are making rounds and inspecting property, and so we're attempting to get to all of those issues. But if you have a specific concern, just let me know, and we'll take another look at that. We can talk to me. You can talk to me after.
Anything further, staff? Any questions of staff on any of this? Anything else? We're adjourned. Thank you for coming. See you next month.
Thank you.